Hello, we are Julie.
Hey. And I'm Rianne.
We are both Ayurvedic health counselors, massage therapists, yoga teachers. And today we are giving this webinar about 7 simple but effective tips to support your health and well being.
Yeah, and let's start with the first one. So yeah, we've shared these already, but I'll just go through them and then we'll explain a little bit more about the background behind it. So the first one for better health is to cook your food. From an Ayurvedic perspective, raw foods can be difficult to digest, which, if it is difficult for you to digest, you can get gas and bloating, indigestion, constipation, and that can also lead to pain and anxiety and all the way up to disease in essence, because the root cause of disease is a digestive system that doesn't work from an Ayurvedic perspective. And so cooked food is easier to digest and it reduces the above discomforts. You will be more nourished because the nutrition that you take in will be better absorbed by your body. So, from an Ayurvedic perspective, we always look at digestion, and we want digestion to work well, so that food can be absorbed and yeah, can build our body the way we need it to be built. And in Ayurveda, we have a concept that we call Agni, which is the digestive fire, and we want that digestive fire to work well. And with raw food, you can see kind of the digestive fire as a campfire. And if you have the campfire, if you want to maintain that well, it needs good wood. And so from an Ayurvedic perspective, if you have, like, you put in little twigs, which is like very light food, or not enough food, then your fire will not be nourished at all. And like things like fasting, then you're not nourishing your fire. So your fire will kind of like go out a bit, and you will not receive the nourishment that your body needs. If you put on too much, if you eat like really heavy meals and you eat like 3 plates, which is just like, then you get into a food coma and all that stuff. Like, imagine that you put on a big trunk on a normal fire, then that fire will also be like, I cannot handle this. I cannot digest this. And so you will also be stuck with undigested food. Then the raw food thing, you can imagine that that would be like a wet log, or yeah, just something that just doesn't burn well. So then again, you'll be stuck with undigested food inside your system, and that undigested food just creates issues. So we really want to nourish our agni, our digestive fire, so that it can create or can get the nourishment out of the food that we take in, and nourish our body and build our body, because in the end we are built of the nourishment that we take in. So the higher the quality of the food that we take in, the higher the quality of our tissues, of our organs, of our whole being. um yeah, and sometimes people say like, oh, if I cook my food, then I'll lose nutrients, which is in a way true, but in another way, it's like pre-digesting the food by preparing the food, by cooking the food, or yeah, heating the food up. The food kind of gets pre-digested, so your body doesn't have to put in so much energy to digest the food. And in my training a while back, my teacher also said, like, before they were eating raw foods, like hunters and gatherers, like way back when, and they were not doing very much all day because their body was busy digesting. But with the cooking of food, we now have much more energy available to live the lives that we are living now, which I'm not saying that those are always healthy lives. But we have much more energy available to do those things. If we would be eating raw food all the time, we wouldn't be able to do all the things that we're doing, because our body just doesn't have the capacity to do so much. But with cooked food, we do. So yeah, that's kind of the
Yeah.
Agni
Mhm.
story about digesting food. Then the second tip we have is keep it simple. So when it comes to food, more isn't necessarily better. Not more in quantity, because then you get into the big log we just talked about, and also not in putting many things together. Like if you want to make like a dish that has all the remains of yesterday and new stuff, and just putting as much as you can into it, because we need all the essential amino acids and all that stuff. So Ayurveda is all about simplicities, making meals that contain up to 5 ingredients, and we don't count the spices because spices are there to aid in the digestion, so they're a whole world in itself. And then the simplicity of food means better digestion and better nourishment. So, oh, stop share. So with that, there's also the simpler we have it, the easier for the Agni it will be to be able to digest the food that we put in, and the better the nourishment that we have will enter into our bodies. Then, if there is indigestion and the food isn't being digested well, then we can get something that's called ama, which is like the undigested food that can create like toxicity in the body, and in the end, inflammation. So if there's ama in the system, it kind of blocks the system, blocks the circulation, blocks just how the nutrients get into the areas where it's needed. So if you have your campfire and see your body as kind of a whole tubing system, a porous tubing system, then the more indigestion we have, the more ama we create, and the more those tubes will be coated with stuff that makes it in porous, that the whole transformation, what's the name, the transport and the absorption doesn't work well. So the idea is that if we have easier to digest food, we'll have more access to the nutrients, and we'll have less ama. And the more ama gets stuck in the body, the more it accumulates, the more it will create inflammation wherever your weak spot is, or in your whole digestive tract, which will just make you malnourished, and will just not help you and create disease in the long run. So the more simple we can keep, and doesn't mean that it's always needs to be simple, because depending on how strong your digestion is, if you have a digestion that is really powerful, then you can make it a bit more complicated, because you need to nourish the fire that you have. So you eat according to the intensity of the fire you have. So if it's really weak, if you have disease, or if you're just not feeling well, then simplicity is definitely key. If you have this raging hunger and you're hangry all the time, then make it a little bit heavier or a bit more complex to nourish that fire that you have, so that that kind of keeps well. Mm-hmm. Anything to add?
No, just like to if you see it like through the campfire image again, like ama or toxins or undigested food, you can actually see as, you know, when you have a fire and then it didn't burn everything and there are still little sticks inside. That's the same thing. That's still like the food is not completely like dissolved into smart particles. And that if you put like these little logs or little pieces of wood through tubes, it will block. And that's the same thing that would happen with our body. So that is what it is called ama or toxins. So it's just an image that you can have in your mind like that to explain it.
And then the next one we have.
Okay, so start your day with a glass of warm water. When we sleep, we dehydrate. Since most of our body is made up of water, it is important to rehydrate. A great practice is drinking a glass of lukewarm water first thing in the morning when you get up. This rehydrates your system and stimulates your digestion. So the digestive system has two functions. Taking nutrients into our body, into our tissues, and also get rid of toxins. And if you drink like a glass of lukewarm water in the morning, this already like cleans out the whole digestive tract. So it gets rid of all the layer or all the undigested parts that are in the digestive tract. So it just literally like flushes it out, it cleans it. So it can also help with constipation, for example. And it is also, if you drink it warm, like why warm water? Because, you know, or digestive fire, you can really see it as a fire. So if you would drink like a big glass of cold water, it will just turn out the fire. If you see it in this image. So it's it's good against constipation. And what was I going to say? So why a glass of warm water? Because it stimulates a bit the digestive fire. So over the night, your digestive fire, I mean, it goes into cycles as well. But like early in the morning, your digestive fire is still a bit low. You still like have to wake up. It's still a bit like everything is a bit sluggish. Everything is slow. There's not a lot of fire or heat in your system yet. So if you drink like some lukewarm water, it stimulates that. Yeah, it will also stimulate you going to the toilet if you have, for example, constipation, because it just stimulates the whole digestive tract. Like how warm should it be? It depends a little bit on the temperature, also on like the person. If a person has already a lot of heat present in the body, like if the person has already some inflammations or rashes or acidity in the stomach or anything that is like heat or burning sensation, then very hot water is not a good idea. It should be more like, yeah, body temperature. But if you like very like coldish or nervous or even like very sluggish, it can be a bit warmer. So you really have to see for yourself like how warm should it be, like what feels comfortable. The first thing in Ayurveda is always listen to your body and feel the signs, what your body, how your body feels, what your body feels good with. How much water you should drink also depends on the person. If you're really like dehydrated, okay, you should need a little bit more. If you like always have dry skin or cracking bones or like very like dryness in your body, you should have like maybe a little bit more. Depends as well like how you can digest it. But usually like you say, like, yeah, one glass in the morning, it can be like half a glass for some people, or like a glass and a half or 2 glasses. It depends a bit. You have to see it with yourself. Also like drinking in general in Ayurveda, how drinking is recommended. It is good to drink sips of lukewarm water throughout the day. So not just if you're like thirsty, have like I said, this big glass of cold water, because that will just turn out your digestive fire. So just have sips throughout the whole day. Also during eating, it is recommended you can have some sips during eating, like some bites and then a little sip of water, but not drink like a large quantity before or after a meal, because that will dilute the enzymes, and you want your digestive enzymes to be strong. So like a glass of water before eating, or like a cup of tea directly after eating, is not really a good idea. There should be like a time span of like an hour, like in between of drinking and eating. So that's just a bit some recommendations of drinking. I don't know if you have some
Well,
to add.
especially if you're dehydrated and have issues, then boil your water first, because that makes it easier to digest. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but boiling something and also just water changes its properties, and that will make it lighter and easier to digest, which for some people, if you are this person who has a lot of thirst, might just be the thing that solves the whole problem. So yeah, it's a small detail, but it's very functional.
There's a lot of little important details in Ayurveda.
Yeah. All right.
Have an early dinner. Just like the sun, our digestive fire is highest at 12, 14 o'clock and will be at its lowest after sunset. This is why you want to eat your latest meal ideally 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. This will help you fall asleep more easily and will avoid accumulations of toxins in your body, or like toxins or body fat. So an early dinner. You might have heard about like intermediate fasting. In the West, it is they changed a little bit the concept. It is a good thing to do. Like you should have some period in the day where you shouldn't eat, where you just like want to burn like fats and you want to go in your reserves. But in the West, they say it like mostly like that you shouldn't eat like in the mornings until you're like hungry, In Ayurveda, that's not really like a good idea. It's not for this webinar, but I just explained the best way to intermediate fast is actually throughout the night. So if you eat an early dinner around, let's say, like 6 o'clock, and then you have the whole night where you don't eat anymore until the next morning, like you eat your breakfast maybe at 8 o'clock in the morning, then you had like 14 hours of fasting, which is very good as yeah, it's a very good thing. Fasting is a very healthy thing to get your body to get rid of toxins, to get rid of its yeah, some accumulation that has built up, to give also a rest to your digestive system. um and an early dinner, there are some different energies throughout the day. So you might have felt like in the morning you feel, like I said, a little bit like more sluggish. You're not quite like awake yet. Like the fire is not very high yet. And then around like lunchtime, the fire is higher. So the digestive fire also is higher. You might feel more energetic. You have a sharper mind. You feel more, yeah, you have more strength in your body, and also your digestive fire is higher, so you're more you can, yeah, you're able to eat much more at that point of the day. But then throughout the afternoon and then throughout the evening, your digestive fire goes down again. So, and it's at its lowest point after sunset. So actually, if your digestive fire is low, it's not a good idea to have like a big meal. A lot of people, they eat like their biggest meal at dinner quite late. So then actually that can cause, because your digestive fire is not high yet, so that can cause actually accumulation of body fats or of toxins. So that's why if you want to, for example, lose weight, it's good to eat your dinner earlier. And usually you'd say like before sunset. Now that depends also a bit like where on the planet you are, and a bit like what season, because sometimes it could be like if you're in Norway, then you have a problem. But no, mostly you should say like latest like 7:30 is the latest time that you could like have your dinner. Was there anything else to add? Um, Also, because I think we can go directly to the next
I
slide.
want to add a little thing is that you also, if you're hungry, you need to eat.
Mm-hmm.
If your Agni
Yeah.
is telling me, feed me, you need to put something in. So
Yeah.
even if that's at 10 in the evening, nourish it, because your Agni is like, it was our first thing. So that's like holy. So there is like that.
Yeah.
And then there is the whole Ayurvedic clock that we also kind of need to respect. But then if you're very hungry, that teaches you that in the evening, that teaches you that your dinner can actually be a little bit heavier, that you don't want to have a super light meal. So again, it always depends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, listen to your hunger and respect that. And the thing with intermittent fasting is that, oh, but I haven't gotten to my 18 hours yet. But your body is
Yeah.
screaming for food. And if you don't listen to that, your body will stop screaming, and then at some point you'll get sick because
Yeah.
you're just not listening to your natural urges anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also if you feel like a bit like you feel like sweets or cravings or are hungry again in the evening, it means maybe you didn't eat, like you didn't feed your body well enough during the day. It's also possible.
Yeah.
But that's maybe not for this webinar. That's a bit too much. And then yeah, I can go directly towards the next slide because they go well together.
Yeah. Up now.
So go to bed. Before 10 p.m. Yeah, before 10 p.m. our energy is low and our bodies slow down, which makes it easiest for us to fall asleep. Between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. our bodies and mind are processing a lot. This is a good time to be at rest, so our energy is used for these natural processes. If we are active during this time, we are more likely to feel tired the next day. So as I said, like in the afternoon and in the mostly like in the evening, you feel like getting tired again. And then it's good actually to listen to that and let your body also like go prepare for sleep. Because this energy like helps you to fall asleep. If you would wait until 10 o'clock, you might have noticed that you get active again, that your mind get active again, that you start planning for the next day. Also your body get active again, you feel more energized, you don't feel that tired anymore, like you've passed over the tiredness. Also, you might feel that you get hungry again because your digestive fire is burning again. So actually, between like 10 and 2 in the night and the morning is actually a very active time for your body and a very processing time. So it is good to use this processing time in your sleep when you are sleeping, because it's like you can see that a very deep sleep, your body goes into like a deep processing sleep, and when it processes not only the food and everything you've eaten, but everything that you have to digest as well, mentally or emotionally. So your body goes through a lot of processes, and it's good to have that in to have that in your sleep. So if you don't go to bed when you like feel the impulse to, like in the evening when you're like tired, and you wait until like 11 uh, or 12 o'clock or later, you also feel like it's very difficult, much more difficult to fall asleep then again, just because there's different energies, you're too active. And if you missed that period of deep sleep, there is a new period earlier in the morning, from like 2 in the morning until like 6 or sunrise. That time of the day is very light. There's a very light energy. So you might have noticed, if you would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's very hard to fall asleep again because it's very light and you need heaviness to fall asleep. And then when you fall asleep again, usually in the early morning around 7 again, before your just when your alarm goes off, because then there's this heavy energy again. And then yeah, it's quite frustrating. But actually, if you didn't fall asleep like before 10, then you didn't have this deep sleep. You only had this part of light sleep, and your body will want to recuperate, will want some deep sleep because it's not rested, so it will try to take some deep sleep from this early morning. But that's not a good idea, because in the early morning, you actually, for your metabolism, it's good to activate your metabolism and that day to get rid of the toxins, to get your fire burning, to prepare yourself for the rest of the day. So your metabolism is driving well, your elimination of toxins are doing good. And you might have felt as well, if you sleep until like 9:30, 10 or something, you just feel sluggish the whole day. So that's a bit how these rhythms work. Something to add to that?
No, it's just like what we always say, like babies fare really well with rhythms. It's like we as adults do too. It doesn't
Yeah.
stop when you grow up. But we just kind of feel like, yeah, but we're an adult now. We can do whatever we want. And
When you're young, it's fine. When you're
yeah.
20s, you can go away with everything.
But yeah,
Yeah.
your body will keep score, and it will come back to bite you in the butt, which yeah, it's just how it goes. So on that note, if we have that whole idea of we want to move in the morning, then we get into our bodies are made to move, because it's important to move your body every day. From an Ayurvedic perspective, it's best to do aerobic exercise. So exercise where you just use your oxygen and you don't get into like muscle cramps and overexertion. And also the idea is to exercise at only half your maximum capacity while you are still able to breathe easily through your nose. If you do more, then you are depleting yourself, which you can compensate for, but often in the long run, this can really create physical, mental, and emotional issues just because of the disturbance of doing it that way. So even though our bodies, they are really made to move, the thing Ayurveda really loves is like just go for a walk, go for a 20-minute walk every day. That would be like very helpful to keep the movement going, but not over move and not do too much and thus deplete your body. You can compensate for that by eating, um, but still the energy of too much movement, yeah, it does something to your system that just doesn't really help. Movement is also a good idea to do in the morning, as Julie said, to get your system going. You could really also, because of the qualities of the earth and water element that are more present then, it's a really good time to build strength because there is that available. Your nutrients have been digested, so they are also available to actually build your body, to build the muscle that you're trying to create. if you eat the right food. Obviously, if you just eat lettuce, then you're not going to build any muscle because that doesn't mix. And so yeah, morning time is a really good time to do some more rigorous exercise if that's what you want to do. In the afternoon, you can also exercise a bit, but it's more like a creative, easygoing thing because we're already kind of like going down, going towards bedtime. So if you do too much, you activate your system too much, and it just isn't helpful. So the whole idea of pumping iron in the gym at 8 in the evening, Ayurvedically, is just not a very good idea. I can understand that you want to get rid of your stress of the day, but yeah, there's better ways of doing it if you look at it Ayurvedically. Um, so yeah, and also that can influence your sleep. If you do too heavy exercise in the evening, then it just disturbs your rhythm, your natural rhythm, and so that can influence also the sleep you have during the night and kind of ruin that. Yeah, and the idea is from the Ayurvedic perspective to be able to keep breathing through your nose. If you do more and you already feel that you're panting, then that's kind of the point where Ayurveda says now you're getting into depletion. And you can do that up to a certain point, but you have kind of this energy reserve, and the lower that is, the lower your immunity will be and the easier it will be to get sick. So we really want to have that energy reserved as well maintained as possible, so that if something happens, like someone around you has bugs, some emotional thing happens, you need to have energy to digest that too, or you have a few days of eating really crappy food, then your body has the reserves to compensate for that until it doesn't, and you get sick. Anything to add to that?
Well, yes, some people, I mean, like some people who want to like lose weight, they just overstress themselves doing too much exercise and maybe like late in the evening, but your body is already like Rihanna said, it's already like you have has used you've used your body already the whole day, so you get a little bit more tired, whereas in the morning you have more energy. But like if you stress yourself by over exercising, actually stress doesn't make you lose weight. Stress, if you have any kind of stress, it just wants to keep. Same as we have, if you have, for example, financial stress, if you are like scared, have scarcity of finances, you're not going to spend. Same with, for example, yeah, if you do too much and you over exercise and you try to stress your body too much with too much sports, you're not going to lose weight. Actually, that's just a bit of a contra indication. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little mistake sometimes people make, like do too much to lose weight, but it's not.
Or you're gonna get so depleted that you'll get into anxiousness or depression, or like it just goes all the way to the other side, which is also not healthy anymore. Yeah. It's a subtle balance. And then our last tip is watch yourself consciously move. So that's more of not so much an Ayurvedic thing, it's more of a yoga therapy thing. And because how we think we move is very often not necessarily what has happened, because through life, through what happens, our body adapts our movement when trauma happens. And so when you observe yourself making small movements, like just your arm or just your leg, you can notice if other parts are trying to help out and trying to support that movement. And if you can see that that's happening, you can become aware of compensation patterns that might be there. And these compensation patterns, they have served a purpose at some point, but maybe now they're not needed anymore. But if you keep having them, they can create pain. So if you breathe well while you move and you compensate less, you will experience less pain, which is the idea of conscious movement. So, and I mean, we all have compensatory patterns in the way we move, which is not a problem until it is a problem and we experience pain. And so there's the whole part of pain can be an Ayurvedic thing where we see imbalances and those create pain, which is also a thing. And then there's also a movement part that if you have compensatory patterns when you move, those can also create pain. It's like if you imagine yourself, you sprain your ankle, you start walking funny, and then your sprained ankle is healed, and then a week later, your left hip, if it's your right ankle, your left hip is starting to be weird and painful. And it's like, but I don't have a hip problem. But then because of the movement pattern you've created, you might have that. And especially if it's like a long-term thing, it's like, oh, I lifted a bucket and now my back is I pulled my back. But it's not because you just lifted the bucket. It's because there is a movement pattern that might not have been serving you for a very long time. So yeah, or we just don't breathe. Like breath is like the beginning of movement. If we don't breathe properly, or yeah, if we hold our breath, if we create tightness, then that also doesn't help with how our body functions. So yeah, the idea is that if you can create more awareness both in your daily habits from an Ayurvedic perspective, like how you eat, how does it make you feel, can you sleep well, if you sleep earlier, does that feel right for you, does it feel good, as well as through movement, like how am I moving, does that feel right, is my body giving me signals that the thing I'm doing isn't supportive, then that awareness that we create over time will be able to bring us to better health. And sometimes it's helpful to have a little bit of help by someone who can see you and see what you're doing, because we cannot change what we're not aware of. So we can be as good as like, yeah, but I do all my exercises really well. But if you don't look at yourself, you'll be like, but this is how I always do it, and it kind of feels good because it's your habit. But just because it's a habit, it doesn't mean it's a one that will serve you in the long run. It doesn't mean it's bad, because there's no bad movement and there's no bad food. It's just, is it useful for you where you are at? And that's kind of the idea of Ayurveda, and also a little bit of yoga therapy, and just life in general, I think.